Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So 61-year-old Marine veteran and North Carolina resident Anthony Mastanduno, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He was seen on the Capitol grounds. He was wearing gloves. At times he had on goggles. He was also seen entering the Capitol about 4 minutes after the initial breach of the Senate wing doors. So he was early in and he followed the mob over to the Capitol crypt. And he was at the front of that large group, I'm sure you guys have seen on video, that overwhelmed the officers. They forced their way past the officers very violently. And so it was so violent, in fact, that one officer told the jury, or a jury in another case, I should say, that he was, quote, crushed into the wall to the point I couldn't breathe. And the officer said he was scared and he feared, quote, that my kids would be growing up without me. As for Maston-Duno, he wasn't in the building for very long. He exited about 20 minutes after he entered, but he stayed on the Capitol grounds even after that. And so he headed over to the Lower West Terrace Tunnel. You guys know that was the site of just horrific violence. So he stood back. He was watching Trump's terrorists for a while. They were violently assaulting the police officers. And then Mastanduno was seen picking up a stolen police riot shield. And then he moved closer to the entrance of the tunnel. So he had the police riot shield in one hand. He had a collapsible baton in the other hand. He stopped for a second, and you see him on video. He set the shield down, and then he picked up a flagpole that was on the ground, and he chucked it at the police line like a spear. The pole, luckily, just grazed one of the officer's hands, and it hit another officer's shield. So neither of those two officers were seriously injured, at least not physically. They had, of course, psychological damage. But Mastanduno continued with his assault even after that. He was holding the police riot shield in one hand, and he used the baton to strike at the officers with his other hand. So Mastanduno struck their shields, and at one point he was seen reaching over the shields. He was specifically trying to strike an officer's head. So fortunately, the blow landed on a riot shield of an officer who was standing behind the target of Mastanduno's violence. So the prosecutor said Mastanduno's attack was so violent and it was like so furious, he was so out of control, his hat fell off of his head. And Mastanduno remained at the front of that police line for a while. And then eventually the police started deploying pepper spray into the crowd. So, he backed off a little bit. Even then, he stayed near the tunnel. He didn't leave the Capitol grounds. He didn't leave until after 5 p.m. that night. So Mastanduno was arrested on August 23rd of 2023, and he was charged with civil disorder, 2 counts of assaulting officers with a dangerous weapon, entering a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, one of which also included a deadly or dangerous weapon enhancement, and 2 counts of physical violence, one of which again included that deadly or dangerous weapon enhancement, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol building. So according to the prosecutor, they couldn't reach a plea deal with Mastanduno. So in December of 2023, without an agreement in place, he was forced to plead to all 9 counts. So based on just one of the assault charges, he was looking at up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. But the prosecutor requested 6 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. Now, surprisingly, Mastanduno has no criminal history. And the prosecutor noted in their sentencing memo that in addition to his military service, he worked as a security guard and as a volunteer firefighter. So they rightfully pointed out that didn't help his case, didn't help his defense, because he knows, or should know better than most, what first responders are up against and what they were up against on January 6th. Still, Mastanduno's defense attorney asked the judge to impose a sentence of only 8 to 14 months in prison. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan presided over this case, and she let them know it's kind of a joke to ask for such a lenient sentence given his amount of violence. Judge Chutkan told them 8 to 14 months was, quote, appropriate by a long shot. So in the end, she sentenced Mastanduno to 57 months in prison and 2 years of probation. There was no mention of a fine or restitution in the court docket, but it does show that the judge is going to be holding a hearing separately regarding restitution. So that's going to be in August 26th for some reason. So she's apparently going to come back to that later. So nearly 5 years, right? Compared to what many other judges would have given, pretty good. So this is why I'm glad Judge Chutkan has Trump's DC coup case. You know, if there is any judge who, by a miracle, can make that trial still happen before the election, it is Judge Chutkan. So we'll see. Anyway, I will let you all know if I hear any more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.